In this video, we're going to go through how to create a certificate generator in a bubble.io app. You'll see here we have a number of predefined certificate templates we can choose from. The user can then fill out some information, and when they hit the create button, we're actually going to generate a PDF of a certificate with all that information on it. It's going to be downloaded in our browser. We can open it up and you'll see there we have the information on it. To start off, let's look at our database structure. I've created a new custom data type called certificate, and it has 5 text fields. The first field is the award description, and this is the reason why the person is being awarded the certificate. So for example, it may be something like first place in a race, for academic achievement, or whatever you're doing it for. Date is going to be the date on which the certificate is awarded on. Link is going to be URL link to the PDF of the certificate that we're going to be creating. Name awardee is the person who is awarded the certificate. And then signature of signer is the name of the person who is signing the certificate. And it's going to be a plain text field. We're just going to use a slightly different font style later on to make it look more like a signature. Next, we're actually going to design our certificate in a separate page of our Bubble app. So let's go and create a new page. And we're just going to call this certificate. Now, no user should really ever be able to access this page. This page is purely going to serve as a template for us to generate PDFs of certificates from. So first thing you're going to do on this page is set the type of content. And we're going to set the type of content to be equal to certificate, which is that custom data type we've just created. And now we're going to go about designing our certificate on this page. So let's set the layout to a column, and let's drop a group element on our page. We're just going to call this group certificate 1. Now, I recommend setting the dimensions of the group to be fixed and have them equal to the dimensions you actually want to generate the certificate in. I've found personally that a fixed width of about 820 and a fixed height of about 575 works pretty well, but you can really use whatever dimensions you want. We're just going to have to match them up later when we're creating the PDF itself. Next, you're going to want to get rid of the padding on the side, or at least that's what I want to do. So I'm going to go for group no padding, just a custom style I've created. And this is going to serve as the basis for our certificate. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to set a background image on the group itself, and this is going to represent the kind of certificate template image. So I'm going to go down here to background style. I'm going to go to image, and then I'm going to upload an image I created just off Canva of a kind of template certificate. Okay, that's uploaded now, and you can see here it's an image, but it's kind of missing some of the key fields. So, this certificate is proudly presented to. This is where we're going to add in the text for the user's name. Date is where we're going to add the date. We're going to add a little description here for the kind of reason why the certificate is being awarded, and then we'll add the signature of the person awarding the certificate over here. Now, it's a bit tricky to get everything laid out correctly. What I typically recommend doing is setting the layout of the group to be equal to align to parent, and then you can drop a text element in, and you're going to want to kind of play around with it a bit. That's not too bad for the kind of name of the person. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set this to current page of certificates, and then the name of the awardee. And we're going to need to do something similar for the description, for the date, and for the signature. I just kind of recommend playing around with it a bit yourself, adjusting the margins if needed, adjusting the position of the elements. But at the end of it, you should end up with something like this, where you have your kind of 4 dynamic text elements, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I've actually used a few groups just to kind of make the layout easier. And this is going to represent the kind of custom information on the certificate. You will notice, just a point, that this text element here is a bit different. The reason is this is going to represent the signature of the person awarding the certificate. And you'll see here I'm using this Ingrid Darling font, which is one of the defaults that comes with Bubble. I just think it kind of makes it look more like a signature, which is why I've used it, but you can of course use whatever font or style you want. So this is how our certificate's going to look. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to the page where the users are generating the certificates from, and we're going to allow them to add their own custom info. Okay, so we're on the index page, and I've added these 4 inputs that are going to correspond to the different fields that we want to fill out for each certificate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a workflow to this create button. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new thing. The thing is going to be a certificate. And I'm just going to add all fields here so we can see what we want to fill out. A word description is going to be equal to input. Let me just check what that is. Multi-line input, of course. So that's going to be equal to multi-line input detail. The date is going to be equal to input date, its value. Link, we're actually not going to fill out just yet. The name of the awardee is going to be equal to input name of person, that's value. And then finally, the signature of the signer is going to be equal to input signatures value. So every time we now click the create button, we're going to create a new certificate entry in our database. So let's just take a look at how that's going to look. I'm just going to keep it simple. Okay, so let's click create, and something's happened in the background there, or at least we hope it has. If we go to app data and look at certificates, we can see this is our most recent entry. So what is useful here is just to show you how this looks if we use this data on the certificate page. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to get rid of debug mode, go to certificate, and this is going to be a blank certificate at the moment because there's no dynamic data being shown. But what I can do is if I grab this unique ID and then I add it to the end of this, we should see that data come through on the cert. So we now have John Doe being awarded for excellence, the date, and the signature of the signer. So this is how you dynamically create the certificates. The trick now is to figure out how we can create a PDF of it and let the users download the PDF of the certificate in their browser. And to do that, we're going to use a tool called DocuPotion. DocuPotion is a PDF solution built by Cranford Tech, and you can install the PDF plugin in your Bubble application by going to the plugins section of your editor, going to add plugins and searching for DocuPotion. Once you have it installed, you're going to need to add an access token to these two fields here. And the way you get that access token is by going to the DocuPotion website, registering for an account, and then once you have registered for an account, go to the My Account tab, generate an access token, and this is what you're going to need to paste into these two fields here. You're pasting the same access token for both of the fields. Now that you've pasted those in, you are going to be able to use the create PDF action that comes with DocuPotion. So right after create a new certificate, we're going to go to create a PDF, which is an action, again, that's part of the DocuPotion plugin. And there are a whole bunch of fields you can fill out here that allow you to customize your PDF as much as you want, but we don't have to fill out all of them. We're just going to do the kind of necessary ones here, and you can look at the documentation if you would like to learn about the other ones. The very first field we need to fill out is the website home URL. And as the documentation here says, we simply put in the dynamic expression website home URL. Page name. Now, for this, we're going to put in the name of the page where we designed our certificate. So in our case, that was the certificate page. So I'm going to put in certificate. For identifier, this is going to be kind of a unique identifier that we're going to use to link the PDF to an entry in our database. And I recommend using the unique ID of the certificate, I should say, you created in the previous step. So I do result of step 1, it's unique ID. Now, we're going to be flagging as having an issue here, and that's because we haven't filled out the callback URL. We'll come back to that, but just the other fields I want to fill out for now are actually the page format, because you can see here you have a bunch of different sizes you can choose, but right down the bottom here, you can choose a custom size. And I recommend choosing custom, then going down to custom format, and setting the width and height here to equal the fixed dimensions you gave your certificate. So you might remember the width of our container group on the certificate page was 820 and the height was 575. Okay, so let's go back to the index page and just see what happens when we now generate a PDF of our certificate page. So I'm just going to fill out these details quickly. And we click create. And this is going to tell DocuPotion to generate a PDF of that certificate page. And We're not going to get it to appear in our browser right now. We've a bit more work to do, but we should be able to access it in the file manager section of our Bubble database. So let me just see, this is the time that I have here. So if I click on my file and open that up, you'll see here two things are happening. Number one, we're getting our search showing up, but it is taking up 2 pages, which we obviously don't want. And then the second issue is there's none of the dynamic data coming up. So let's solve the kind of extra page first of all. The reason we're getting this extra page is because on our certificate page, you'll see here we have some space beneath the certificate itself. Whereas if I go to certificate up here, go to layout and just set the min height to 0, that means only the cert is going to take up the full PDF. And then solving the other issue where we're not getting the dynamic data showing up, we are going to go to the create PDF action. And the trick here is to basically pass through the dynamic data in the page name. So you might remember earlier we went into our database, we got the unique ID associated with a certificate, and that displayed the dynamic data on the page. And PDFPotion works in exactly the same way. So what I'm going to do is at the end of certificate, I'm going to say insert dynamic data, result of step 1, its unique ID. So we're taking the unique ID of the certificate, we're adding it to the page name, which is going to tell PDFPotion to get the dynamic data. Also just going to make 2 other small changes. I'm going to change the name of the file to certificate, and I'm also going to increase the quality by going down here, and I have compress set as no, but I can set the device scale factor up to 4. That's a field that lets you set the resolution of the generated PDF. So let's refresh and create another PDF. Let's click create. And if we go to the file manager section of our database again and just refresh it, we should see another entry. This time it's called certificate. And if we open it up, this looks a lot better. It's only 1 page, it's of higher resolution, and we have all the dynamic data we had added. So this is how you create certificates with the custom information on them. I guess next step we need to do is figure out how the user can download these certificates in the browser, because at the moment it can only be accessed via file manager, and that's not particularly useful. They can't really access it there even if you as the admin can. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a backend workflow to process the PDF and link it to an entry in our database. Now, in order to do this, you're going to need to go to the settings tab of your Bubble editor, go to API, and ensure that this enable workflow API and backend workflows option is ticked. You will need to be on a paid Bubble plan to do this. But once you do have that ticked, you're going to have in backend workflows the option to create API workflows here. You can see I've already created one, so I'm just going to delete this and recreate it so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to click here to add a backend workflow. It's going to be a new API workflow. I'm going to call it get PDF with the underscore there. I'm going to expose it as a public API workflow, and I'm saying it's going to be run without authentication. I'm then going to pass through 2 parameters. The first one I'm going to pass through is ID. That's going to be a text. And the second one is going to be link, which is also going to be a text. You must type these out exactly as they are here, all lowercase, exactly ID, exactly link. This is what PDFPotion will be sending to your Bubble app, so it needs to be in that exact format. Then we can go to click here to add an action, and we're going to make changes to a thing. And the thing we're going to change is we're going to do a search for all the certificates in our database, and we're going to change the first one where its unique ID is equal to ID. You might remember back in our create PDF action, we sent through an identifier. Just have a quick look at that there. And that's this here. That's why we did it. So we can link the PDF that it created and then in the backend, link it up to an entry in our database. So let's go back to our backend workflows. So that's going to look for the very first one where the unique ID is equal to the ID we passed through. And we're just going to change one field. We're just going to change the link field and we're going to change it to the link that DocuPotion is sending back. So this is the backend workflow that's going to trigger linking up the PDF with an entry in our database. But now we need to figure out how to get the URL associated with this API workflow and tell DocuPotion what it is, because DocuPotion needs to know where to send its webhook and alert your app that a change needs to be made. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the index page, and on this create PDF action, we have a field here called the callback URL. And as you can see, this is the URL of the backend workflow that will process the PDF after it's created. So that's what we need to do. We need to get the URL associated with that backend workflow we just created and add it in here. And the easiest way to do that, in my experience, is by going to the settings tab of your editor, copying the workflow API root URL, pasting it into that field there. And then at the very end of it, we're going to do / and then the name of the backend workflow we created, which was in our case, get_PDF. And that's all it is. There's one more thing I do recommend doing here just to keep things simple. At the moment, you can see we have the version test URL in here, and things can get messy if you're messing with, deploying to live versus test mode. So what I do for this is I take everything just before API in the URL, which is here. I delete it, and then I put in dynamic data website home URL. That just keeps things a bit simpler because that will automatically know whether there's test version or the live version you're dealing with. Okay, let's try that again. And I'm hoping this time when we create a PDF, we're going to have a link field here in our database. So let's refresh, put in some data. And we'll click create. Again, this is telling DocuPotion to create that PDF. And let's go into our database and let's refresh our data. This is the most recent one. And yeah, you can see a link has appeared here. And if we click on that link and just paste it into our browser, we're getting our PDF of the certificate. So that's how we link a PDF to an entry in our database. One more step is obviously to let the user download that PDF. So this is a bit simpler. We're going to do a small bit more work, but we're nearly there. On the index page where we're creating the PDF, what we can do is we can click here to add an event, and we can add a custom event. The custom event is going to be, let's call it cert created, and we're going to add in a parameter. The parameter we're adding, let's just call this cert again, and it's going to be of type certificate. And we're going to add a download PDF action to this custom event, which again is a action that comes with the DocuPotion plugin. And the link field here is just simply going to be equal to certs link. And file name, let's just call it certificate for now. So this is a custom event that's going to download the PDF essentially, but we only want to trigger this when a PDF has actually been uploaded to our database and the URL has been added to the certificate entry. So Bubble has a really nice action for these kind of things, and it's under custom events, and it's this one here, trigger a custom event when data changes. The custom event we're triggering is the cert created event. It's the only custom event on the page. The thing we're watching is the certificate that we're creating in step one, and the field we want to watch is the link field, because when that link field goes from blank to having a value, we then want to download the PDF. So let's try this again. Just delete these old ones. And we'll click create. So it is going to take a few seconds for DocuPotion to create the PDF, upload it to your database, but you can see there it's been downloaded and it shows up there. If you do want to kind of give your users a nicer kind of experience while the PDF is being generated, what I do sometimes is add a loading screen in. So this is just like a floating group with a text element and a spinner. And what you can do is just before you actually create the certificate, you show an element, and that's going to be the loading screen. And then when the certificate is created and you download it, you can hide an element. And again, that's going to be the loading screen. So just to give you a sense of how that looks. We're getting the loading screen up. DocuPotion is going away to create the PDF of the certificate. And then when it's ready to be downloaded, loading screen is hidden, and we can open up our certificate. So that's how you generate PDFs of certificates. There's kind of one more thing I want to cover, and that's giving your users a selection of template images to choose from, or template certificates to choose from, so they can pick a different style for their certificate. You can do this in a number of ways, but the way I like to do it is by creating an option set. So option sets are really useful for managing kind of consistent sources of data where there's a limited number of options. And I've created an option set here called certificate images. And you can see here there's 4 different options. Each one has a display, which is just a bit of text, and an image. And if I look at the various 4, you'll see here this is a certificate, this is another one, this is another one, and so on. So these are kind of templates that we can give to our users and allow them to choose what style of certificate they want to give. And you can see here back on my index page, I've just created a repeating group that has the 4 of these images coming through to it. You can see how it looks up here, searching for all certificate images, and then we're just adding in that image to that kind of repeating group there. So this is how we're going to let the user be able to choose a specific image. They're going to click on one, it's going to get a kind of formatting around it, and that's going to let us know that that is the specific one that they want. And what we can do to do that is we can go to our group container here, and we're going to set a state whenever it's clicked. So if I go to my page and if I go to information, you'll see here I've added a custom state called cert template, and the type is certificate images, which is that option set that I created. And what I'm going to do is every time this is clicked, I'm going to set the state of a thing. I'm going to set the state of indexes cert template, and its value is going to be this group's certificate images. Then on the group itself, you'll see here I've added a conditional statement so that when this group certificate images is the same as the custom states, we're going to get this border around it. So just to give you a sense of how that looks, we're going to refresh our app, and you can see now whenever I click on my certificate template, it kind of highlights to the user that that's the one they've chosen. So we now need to figure out a way to link the certificate style that the user chooses with what's output in the PDF. And the way we can do that is if we go back to our certificate page, you'll see I now have a second container with a second certificate in there, which corresponds to template number 2 here. And what I'm going to do is by default, I'm going to say these are going to be collapsed when hidden. So that's on certificate 1. I already have it on certificate 2. And we're then going to use the page URL to control which of these certificate appears. So what I'm going to do is when I'm on my create PDF action back on my index page, which is of course here, I'm going to add a URL parameter to the end of the page name. I'm going to put in the question mark to signify its URL parameter, and I'm going to say template equals indexes, which is where we have our custom state, its display. So just to give you a sense of how that looks, and what I might actually do is put this in debug mode, and then if I choose the second certificate, actually let's just go with the first one for now, but let's just put in test here, and I'll come back to these and do it properly in a minute. But if I go step by step, you'll see here when I'm creating the PDF, the page name is now certificate / the unique ID, and then template equals template 1. And we can use this to control which of the certificates we're showing and which ones we're hiding. So I'm just going to run that. But back here, I'm going to say back on my certificate page, I'm going to say certificate 1 when get data from page URL, when template, which is a parameter we're passing through, is, and then get an option, template 1, it's display, it's visible. I'm going to copy that condition and paste it, change the is to is not, and I'm going to untick that then there. And I've already added those conditions to the second one, but hopefully now when we create asserts, so I'm just going to choose the first one first, and let's put in our details. Once we create our cert this time and download it, I'm expecting the first style of certificate to be in our PDF. Let's open it up and take a look. So yeah, that's coming through. And now if we choose the second one and create a PDF of that, I'm hoping it's going to be the second style. Open it up, and sure enough, you can see that's the second format. So that's kind of how you can allow users to have template styles to choose from. You can obviously give them as many as you want. But yeah, hope this video has been useful. If you do have any questions, you can let us know in the comments below.